I gave you my heart.
How you doing, guys? Retrobucky here. Today isn't a game review. I wanted to go over ways that you can test and troubleshoot your old cartridge games that may no longer be working. And it could be simple fixes. A lot of times it is, and these games end up in the trash, and you could have fixed it all along. So we're going to be looking at Duck Hunt Mario combo here. This game is no longer working for me. I have tested in the past. I think it may be actually one of the main chips could be bad. But we're going to go over how to trace your lines, test everything, and test the capacitors, and give you a better idea on not just troubleshooting, but some of your options if you do run into any situations where one of these could be bad. So let's get down to the chip and get started. First thing I'm going to show you is how to test your pins and your copper leads that's going throughout the computer board here. I got a basic multimeter from Walmart. It's the EverStart. I have it set to ohms, but audible, so you can hear a long beep if there's a connection. And typically, whenever I get a new game and I'm checking it out, I'll go one by one. So I'll start with touching a pin, and then I'll touch every solder joint that is connected to that lead coming from the pin. That'll tell me if there's any breaks or any bad solder joints. Sometimes the solder joints on these this board, sometimes they can loosen up and start to break, and you have to resolder them because they're not making a good connection. So I typically will go through every pin and test to make sure there's a connection. And I like using the audible sound on the multimeter because it'll let you know you actually have a connection just by hearing the beep. You can do the same on the other side to check the chip boards on this side of the pin. So let's say you're testing this one. You can run across the legs of the chip to find your connection. If you hear the beep, you know you're connected to that chip. Let's do it this way so you'll be able to see it. So I'm on that copper pin, run across the chip, and if you have a connection, you'll hear a beep on the chip. There we go, connection. So I typically will go through every one of those lines. If you do have a line that doesn't have a good connection or is not making a connection, I guess would be the best way to say it. Somewhere in that line could be a bad spot, a break, and it's not making a good connection. All it takes is just one small tiny thing to ruin these boards sometimes. But usually these copper lines, if you find the problem, you can solder in a small wire to help relink these games and get them back functioning. If you just get a little experience with soldering and how to work with game chips, it's not too difficult, it's not too hard. I currently don't have one that needs that kind of repair, so unfortunately I can't show it to you. But that's how you test your leads to your pins to make sure it's all functioning. Now to test these little capacitors, because sometimes any capacitor, if you work in any kind of maintenance field when it deals with batteries or capacitors and stuff like that, you will know that capacitors go bad. Sometimes you'll see them swell up and get fat. Sometimes you can see them, discharge and kind of leak. I haven't typically seen these in old cartridge games, but I know that these capacitors can go bad. So you locate your capacitor. That would be the two pins right there for it. We're going to set our multimeter to ohms, but around 1K, 2K. I only have 2K on this one, so we're going to do 2K. And you're going to touch both sides of that capacitor. If I get a good feel for it, I got about a 1.6 on here, so I know that it's working. There's nothing wrong with it. Typically, what you get on your multimeter, the number you get, you want it to match the voltage coming from the capacitor. So you want it to match the capacitor. And you can usually find the strength of the capacitor on the outside of it. You can buy these little parts here. the capacitors. You can get these capacitors, and you could desolder this one and solder in a new one. Just like you can repair these copper lines with soldering in a new line. You can also do the same thing with the batteries for these old games, like Legend of Zelda. It has a battery pack to save your game. You can replace those batteries and solder in new ones. So it's not impossible to get your game working. Just because it stops working doesn't necessarily mean that you have to throw it away or it's bad. I mean, it can happen. I mean, one of these main chips could go bad, and some of these, like the game chip on here, if that goes bad, like you might as well just get a new game. You can't fix that. But sometimes it's as simple as fixing a lead or replacing a capacitor or simply just cleaning it up real good. It could be as simple as these solder joints here are broken or bad or not making a good connection. You need to resolder some of these solder joints. It could be simple things, and not necessarily meaning you have to throw the game away. Typically, how I test to make sure solder joints are good or bad, I just kind of work my way around, gently pulling at the legs and looking for any loose solder that may turn or shift back and forth, because it shouldn't shift all. It should all just be solid. So if you see any shifting solder joints, you know that, hey, that one's bad and needs to be resoldered. Electric components, be it a computer board or any kind of electrical work, if there's a loose point or a bad connection, it's just not going to work. And like I said, with these computer chips, all it takes is one bad lead and the whole game won't work. You know, it's all like one giant cog. One cog turns the other. It's one relay to the next relay to the next relay. So don't give up on your old games. Sometimes it's just as easy as doing a little bit of maintenance and actually looking into it to figure out the problem. That's what I love about old games, is that new games, you get a CD, it gets all scratched up, it won't play. Or you download a game, system crashes, you're not backed up, you lose the game. This game is like having an old car. A part goes bad, you maybe can fix it yourself and get it running again. Occasionally, maybe the engine blows and you just have to get a new car, but most of the time, it could be just a simple fix, and sometimes it's just as simple as just cleaning your pins with a little bit of a light alcohol solution, or with Brasso. A lot of people use Brasso. Just cleaning up the pins most of the time will do the trick. So don't give up on these old games. It's not just games that you can do this to and fix up. You can do this with your old consoles too. And recently, I didn't film it, but recently I took apart the Nintendo 64 and cleaned up all the dust and gunk that built up over the years. And now it works flawlessly. I mean, most of the time when it comes to these old consoles and old games, it's not just trash. If they don't work, you can fix them. You know, there's people who fix their old NES games by just simply replacing the 72 pin. I mean, it's no reason to throw away a game or throw away a console. I had a family member who had an old NES console. The thing stopped working, and every game they stuck in, it just wouldn't play it. Luckily, they didn't throw the games away, but the console itself has since been missing, and it's assumed that they did discard it. And it had all the symptoms of a bad 72 pin. And when I did get these games from them and open them up, every single one of them was dirty. So more than likely, they just needed to clean the games. Guys, I hope you found this helpful. I appreciate everything. If you have any questions, you can comment down below. I'll be happy to answer them. I read all my comments. Or you can reach out to me on Twitter. My Twitter link is going to be posted below. Or you can reach out to me on Facebook, Retro Nerd page, which will be linked below. We're going to have a new video coming out Monday. It's going to be an eBay unboxing and game review. So look forward to that. And until next time, stay home, stay safe, and play games. Catch you later.
They give you